Okay, wonderful. Good morning. I'm Susan Yankee, and this is the Connecticut State Advisory Council for Special Education Executive Committee meeting, which I am calling to order today on July 12th, 2023 at 10:32 a.m. Is there anyone for public comment? I don't believe so. Okay, wonderful. We'll move on to consent agenda. We need to approve the May 8th, 2023 SAC Executive Committee meeting minutes. Are there any corrections? I looked through, I didn't see anything.
I didn't see any.
Okay, wonderful. Would someone like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Catherine, would someone like to second it? Nachi, thank you so much. Abstentions from anyone who didn't attend?
Yes,
That
that's
would be
me.
Jeff. Wonderful. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes of the May? Okay, so I believe, Sean, do we need Brian to discuss committee matters, the summer orientation? Or do you have all the details?
I don't have all the details, but he said if we wanted to at least start the conversation, if you have some items you wanted to start the conversation with, Susan, you can. I don't know if you have the agenda for that day.
Do. Oh,
okay,
no, I do not have it. That's why I just have today's agenda. Do you want to make a motion to move membership first? So we can.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we do
that? Wonderful. Others up to the top of the committee matters agenda. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I can second that motion.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay, we're moving up membership matters to the top of the committee matters agenda. Ms. Catherine Sung.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to be short and sweet. I don't have anything new to report. I am going to reach out to our student candidate and his family regarding the meeting next week, because I know we are going to have the members vote on his application. So I just want to reach out to him and his family and see if there are any accommodations that he will need, so that we're prepared, and then I will provide Jolie with that information. And I am still hopeful that maybe in the next couple months, we're going to have an additional student candidate. I know we're on summer hiatus, but I know that there is a student who's interested out there. So I really hope I'm going to have some more to report on that potential candidate in the future. And then I don't know if you wanted me to address the new member orientation. I think Jen is actually the best person to address that. She and I spoke briefly the other day about it, but she is going to take the lead on that. So, it's still in the works, and I think that she'll have more information to report soon.
Okay, is Jennifer, do you know if she's coming today?
It's funny. I thought she was coming, but maybe something came up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a text from her or an email. So I'm guessing something came up because she's always here.
Okay. Also, Sean, I was assuming, but we need to wait for Brian, about under membership would come the new bylaw for the new para, the wording. Okay, we'll wait for him on that.
Yeah, I'm assuming he'll have that when he comes on, Susan.
Okay, yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And then, another thing related to that, when Jen and I were talking, we were also wondering if we should add to the bylaws, but we would want to have a discussion first. Do we want to have, because Concase typically likes to have a representative from the LEAs, do we want to specify that we'd like to have representation from one of the RESCs? Because that's a group that currently is not represented on the SAC. So that may be something to consider.
I believe Brian was considering that, and I think that's going to be in the wording, Sean. Is that correct?
I believe so also, Susan. We
It
can
is? Okay,
clarify when
good.
he gets on.
Okay.
I want to clarify when he gets on just to make sure.
Absolutely. Okay, sounds good.
Wonderful. So we cannot move on until we have the wonderful Mr. Brian Klemenkowitz, because he has all the information for today. Does anyone have any are we allowed? We can't move to new, we can't really move on to anything else. Okay, so Matthew, should we do a pause, or we already started the meeting, so we have to?
Well, I can address the legislative thing. I don't think
yes.
Brian has to be here for that. So, just as an update, the two big pieces that we were following were the bill. One was language, and I was trying to follow that. And when you go on to the Connecticut General Assembly, the CGA site, and you can do the bill following, etc. I didn't. It was so much in the news. Before, as the session was coming to a close, and we had excuse me, fast and furiously submitted stuff, and I had to put together something that we could each send to our own legislators, etc. So, I was waiting to hear anything about it being passed, and I didn't really hear anything. So I was going online, and if you were to go online and look up the bill 1200. It just kind of shows a dead end, it just kind of dead ended. So I didn't think, I figured, okay, it just kind of like died there. The other bill that we had interest in was 6883. And the same thing that, it kind of just like died. But then interestingly, I had seen an article about a week or so ago, I think it was, we're handling restraint and seclusion. And that was the same article then that a couple of days later that Jen sent around. And if you read the article down, there was a quote that basically said that coming out of the legislative session that the bill didn't pass, but that the Education Committee had passed a resolution, so to speak, where they were asking for the creation of a task force. So, which was interesting because, as you know, we were kind of suggesting that might be something to look forward to. Anyhow, so what I did was I've written to, there's a woman who was on the Education Committee by the name of Dominique Johnson, and she happens to be a representative from Norwalk. So I wrote to her, and first of all, I went online and I was trying to find this resolution. And I was, when you go into the legislative papers, I couldn't find it. I went to the Education Committee. I looked on agendas. I just couldn't find it. I don't know where you could find it. So I've written to her and I've said to her, could you please give me a copy of this resolution that you guys passed? So, and I just wrote that yesterday in advance of this meeting today. I haven't heard back from her. So what I will do when I get that from her, I will forward it to everybody, but that's kind of like an update.
Thank you, Jeff. I was having great difficulty trying to find any information on what bills were passed because obviously they didn't pass, so there was nothing in the database.
Right.
But Sean, do you know of any information? Because I do know that the task force changed some wording, so maybe there was different little things that were amended.
I don't know all the specifics. I know that Brian plans to do a legislative update at our meeting next week.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's still unpacking things right now with our office here. And so that's one of the intentions for next week.
Oh, okay. So that's our past legislative, thank you, update.
Right.
Wonderful.
Oh,
All right.
and here's I was
Here.
going to say Jen's here now.
Sorry, I was on another meeting. I apologize for being late.
That's okay. And hello, Jolie. We had moved membership matters and legislative matters without a motion, but that's okay. Up to we're talking it now, waiting for Brian, and we didn't know if you had any little update about the new member orientation meeting for the executive board of when it is.
Update. So because this year at the the bigger retreat, we decided not to go into the deeper details because such a large portion of that group had already been through the training multiple times. We wanted to have a smaller session for the new members where it would be more of a presentation into the purpose of the SAC, how the SAC works, and talk about things on a deeper personal level, and give them a chance to ask their questions in a smaller setting. Yeah, basically that's it.
And Jen, just what I had done was I had indicated that I was trying to follow up on the two major pieces of legislation that we were following, the Bill 1200 and 6883, and that I was kind of stymied because I was looking on the legislative website, and it seemed like they all came to a dead end. And I had also come across the article that you had sent to everybody just the other day. And interestingly, where the beginning of the article, it talks about how the school districts are handling this. But in then toward the end of the article, and I'll read it what it says. It says, in March, the Legislators' Education Committee introduced a bill that would ban seclusion across Connecticut and limit the circumstances under which students can be restrained. At a public hearing, advocates spoke out against the practices while parents shared tearful stories about the long-term trauma their children had experienced after being restrained or secluded. The committee advanced a weakened version of the bill, one that would have permitted seclusion under the supervision of a mental health professional, but the proposal never came up for a vote in either the House or the broader legislature. Instead, lawmakers, and this is the part that I'm following up on. Instead, lawmakers passed a measure assigning a special education task force to examine the feasibility of banning seclusion and replacing it with other interventions. Then it says, we figure allow them to work through this and have the conversation and then come back with recommendations that they'll all have been a kind of to get behind, said a legislator. So what I did, Jen, was I wrote to the local rep that's on the education committee from Norwalk, Dominique Johnson, and I quoted that and this and that. And I said, hey, could I get a copy of this this resolution that you passed? Because I couldn't find it anywhere. So that's just an update, and that's where we were. And thank you for sharing that article. I'd seen it too.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Sean, do we have an estimated time of arrival for Mr. Klemenkowitz?
He was finishing up a meeting also, so I'm not sure. I'm assuming he should be here in a few minutes.
Okay, great. Because I do not have any information on the orientation. So.
Up here.
Man of the hour is here.
Brian, you knew your ears were burning. We were
right on cue. Was I right on cue?
Like beyond right on. Like
all right.
Like she didn't even finish. Like I opened my mouth to respond, and I'm like, what?
Morning, everyone. It's great to see you all. Happy July.
Happy July.
Brian, is your chin getting longer or is the beard getting longer?
I hope it's the beard.
Okay.
It's the beard. He gets like that.
So Brian, we went over membership matters and legislative, and
okay, great.
John also told us that you were going to give us an update on the July 19th orientation that you were trying to fill your department's unpacking it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's up to you all as far as you'd like that incorporated into our meeting or into the orientation. I think we can approach it a little differently depending on what context you'd like that report. Obviously, it's still very new and the information is coming out and we're still unpacking a lot of the various public acts, but we have a nice chart started. And I think at the very least, we could share the links to the bills in advance of the meeting and reference the sections that are directly related to special education. That's not, just like we say, Jeff, with our group and legislation, that doesn't mean that there aren't other important education bills that encompass students with IEPs and 504 plans, but these have like a specific direct mention of or direct link to the population that we advise upon.
Maybe we could put that on the our July 19th, the rescheduled May 24th meeting, because there might be some members that are not going to stay for the retreat part.
Okay.
So maybe put that on the legislative. I don't know what other members think about
Happy to do that.
Is that okay, Jeff? Okay.
I'd like to hear it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jeff, what you and I can do, like we can touch base too, just as the legislative liaison, if you have any questions or, I know you like to kind of jump in from the State Advisory Council perspective.
Yeah, no,
Also.
I appreciate that. And just real quickly, I had written to the Dominique Johnson, who's on the Education Committee, to find from her because it was reported that the Bill 1200 that had the restraint and seclusion and it didn't pass, but they had assigned it out to a task force to study the issue. And I wanted to get the language of the actual resolution that was passed, and also then follow up to see who's on that and see if we can keep our thumb.
It would be if it's just the beginning. So
Right.
I don't know who would know that. So I guess we are back to the July 19th summer orientation and May 24th rescheduled full council meeting agenda planning. Mr. Clement?
This, we talked about doing our own facilitation, so Sean, Jolie, and I just wanted to check in with you to see what your vision for that was. Like you said, we have veteran members and we have some newer members, a really nice mix as a committee. And so for some, I think we have a few folks where this will be their first priority setting, but most of our committee or council have gone through this process in the past. So, I'm open to, and we are open to your suggestions on how we structure this. Typically, we start out by reviewing our current priorities and how we kind of came to and highlight certain aspects of the annual report, and then open it up to, some type of brainstorming discussion around topics, and then thereby whittle down to what we're going to carry forward to the next session. So, I always like to envision chart paper, some, creative kind of questions that spark discussions in smaller groups, those types of things. But if you have a particular activity that we've done in the past that you thought was valuable or have something new to suggest, we're all ears on that.
For my own personal I like the activities as long as the activities don't take too long and there's fruition from the activity. Sometimes the activities, when tables are left too long talking amongst themselves, I feel like it goes, I really enjoyed myself last time, but I felt like we don't expand on the topic enough. I don't know if, I don't know if anyone has any more information or anything they want to share. I would love to really make this a move forward and we come out with something, get a lot of work done. Anyone?
Yeah, I'll just add, Susan, one of the things I know I don't want to do as part of this facilitation, last year, I think part of what didn't work is, all the little extra questions we had to answer, they weren't really related to what we do or how we do our work. Like our dreams, our visions, that's all great pie in the sky stuff, but we really need to have questions that get to the answers that actually pertain to what we do, and we're supposed to be advising. So does that make sense? I don't know what.
Yeah, so let me just report back kind of what I'm hearing. So Susan, as an outcome of this meeting, you really want to have X number of priorities set, like you want it to be a start and a finish within this time frame.
No, it doesn't have to be a finish, but I would just love to get a great head start, maybe, and at least maybe sketch out what we need to do so that then our future meetings will roll quicker because we already have like a base. Nachi actually has his hand up.
Got it. Yeah, one thing too, I just want to comment before we go to Nachi for Jen, you're saying you want it really related to the functions of the council and specifics of the council rather than more general, generic special education.
Was not efficient.
Last year.
Yeah, it wasn't efficient for our group. Like as we tried to follow the facilitation, it really didn't help us get to where we were going, and
got it.
We ended up skipping through it.
I think it's practical to have the priorities set by the end of this session, Susan. You don't want it to carry on too much further. Like sometimes it carries on, but really by September, we want them set.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I think we can get there. Okay, Nachi? Sorry.
No, thank you. I actually concur with all three of you, what you're saying, and my thing is, having gone through a few of them, I found the most productive was when we looked at what we've done. Like, this is this year, this is what we've done. What do we carry over? What's new? We can also view a little bit of legislative session in the sense that, okay, these are the things that have come up, whether they passed, didn't, what did pass, what didn't, and then hone in. And I agree that because we have done it in the past where we finish our priorities that day. And I think to Jen's point, sometimes if we just, the time is always an issue, because this is a lot of work crunched into a short amount of time.
Yeah,
we want to come away with real things that we can, this is our priority, these are our areas. And not everybody, it's a group think. So not everybody, like each one of us will have a number one priority, but we might not get that number one. It might be three, it might not be on the list. But if we have the time to hash it out, I think we get to what the general consensus is. And so I agree that we focus. I agree that we don't have anything that distracts us from that, and that however the facilitation goes, it's really to the point of what are our priority, what are the unmet needs that we're seeing, what are our priorities that we want to work on, given this year, past priorities. And that's all.
thanks, Nachi.
And on Nachi, on yours, I would also like to include what the task force is working on, and what their discussions go to, not exactly what they're talking about, but it's good to know what is being discussed and what's being worked on. Because it might not be in our priorities, but I think it's very important that
It's work that will you'll be engaged in that work all next year for sure.
Yeah, but just give them.
So it has to be acknowledged at least.
Yeah, and to let the SAC know what the task force is working on.
Yep.
And yeah.
Jolie, what are the hours for the meeting in the morning? The meeting starts at 9.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the business meeting goes from 9 to 11. Or is it 10:30?
I thought it was 10:30.
10:30, right? An hour and a half.
Yep, I haven't provided anyone set details because I didn't know if you guys wanted to change that, but we're usually the meeting that we're rescheduling was only 9 to 10:30.
Okay, and we'll do a roundtable during that, because we seem to get so much information from the roundtable.
Well, so this is where decision making has to happen, because a few of you mentioned time.
Right.
So the full time that we have at CAS is 9 a.m. to 1.
Okay.
Okay, so that we could do just a priority setting activity probably in that amount of time, but we also have the business meeting, which is very important. We need to carve out. So maybe we start with the agenda of that business meeting, and we already talked about covering the legislative updates. That's going to be at least 30 minutes.
Okay, and the added bylaw of paraeducators.
The bylaws, yeah. I think we formally have to do the council positions, right, of chair and vice chair. Don't we have to do? Isn't that on the next year?
Okay.
I don't think we did that. We were going to do it in May, I thought.
So under membership.
Yeah, that won't take long, but that's just another action.
And Catherine has the new student, and possibly the new student to vote on, and possibly you said maybe another application, but that would have to go through us first.
Yeah, I think I don't think we're going to get the application in time. I was hoping we would have an application, but because now it's summer break, I don't know how long it's going to take before we get that one, but I just anticipate one coming.
Okay. Is there any chance we could get the, I know you were having someone work on the the para education wording for the bylaws. We could maybe look at that ahead of time, and then that could cut off some time if we
Yes.
discuss ahead of time. Okay.
Yep. So I think based on those tasks, I mean so we haven't talked about roundtable yet, and that's probably an hour if we hustle.
Okay.
Maybe even 90 minutes. So I don't know if we will be able to fit in the
Okay.
roundtable.
Can we, because my big worry about this session, having gone through a few summers, again, is the priorities are that important that we want to hash them out, and we need time to talk them through. That before the meeting, we ask people for their roundtable thoughts in writing.
Okay.
I like that idea.
They could be in the minutes. That way people could submit them if they have something to say, and they could be in the minutes for others to read.
I was
like
going to
that
say the
too,
same
'cause-
thing, Nachi.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing.
Pre-identify areas of interest. I like that.
And that
Yeah.
might give our students time to think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
or to
yeah.
craft what they need to craft.
Yeah.
Because I know I need that time sometimes too. So,
Awesome.
wonderful. Great suggestion, Nachi. Great.
So I'm thinking after the regular business meeting, there's probably like a natural like get up and stretch for 15 minutes, and now we're coming into so do we also envision a lunch break in there before, or a working lunch, or no, not a lot of, yeah.
Maybe a working, maybe bring stuff with you, but we're going to keep working.
We're going to
Yeah.
keep working and kind of have lunch afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're stopping at 1, so
Yeah.
I just feel that people should have snacks,
Yeah.
bring stuff. But I worry again about time.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I agree too, because I think it's really important that, we're able to identify our priorities. And since we're only there till 1 o'clock, I think if people have snacks, everyone will be fine.
Okay. We can bring some chocolate to keep us going too.
So this one next week, sorry for being out of it here. This is going to be live.
Yes, in person.
Okay, and so this is going to start at 9. And where is that going to be?
In Cheshire.
It's at the
Paz is no longer in Cheshire. I am lying. I want to say, I'm sorry, give me a second. I think I wrote you guys that they're in.
Is it West Hartford?
Nope, not Hartford. Are they still in Cheshire, Brian?
They are. Yes, I think so.
Okay. It's okay. Got it.
Yeah,
It's
it's the Connecticut Association of Schools building.
I think I'm confusing with Cirque. Okay.
Yeah, the invite
Cirque.
says it's at 30 Reality Drive in
That's it.
Creighton, Cheshire.
Okay. Nope.
That's it.
I just had a moment and I confused it with Cirque.
Yeah, Cirque, it has a new location. You're right.
Yep. Nope. We're good. And that is in Cheshire. 9 to 1. I have the room scheduled a little bit before and after, usual, for cleanup. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for setup and cleanup. Perfect.
Yep.
And and that's where the last special education task force meeting was, correct?
Oh.
Because I was saying I was having a difficult time at home hearing people because the mic wasn't. I was speaking to Jennifer about that.
The last task force was in CAPS, not CAS.
Oh, okay.
That was in West Hartford.
Okay. Because are we having a Zoom option?
There is a Zoom option.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do our best with technology for folks that won't be there in person. But
Okay.
they have the OWL system where
Right.
it picks up on who's speaking and all those different features, and we'll be on the bottom floor for accessibility, so we won't be going up to the small room on the second floor.
Oh, yeah, I
And-
remember that.
And
Yeah.
Catherine is reaching out to the new student to talk to them about what accessibility they need if they're attending or if they're on Zoom.
Okay, yeah, because
Beautiful.
I have another meeting at 11 o'clock here at City Hall. So
Mhm.
I might have to join by Zoom.
No problem.
Understand.
We will miss you, Jeff.
I'm gonna miss the snacks,
Well,
depending on what they are.
Missy made an amazing.
She
lemon
did.
custard bread.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to talk to Missy before and see if she could repeat that. All right. So that's how, Sean, do you have any other questions or suggestions as far as the draft agenda or anything?
I think the only thing I would have is just if we
Yeah.
want targeted questions for our priority groups in order to really get at what we're looking for. I think when we break out into priority groups in our sessions, I think it's really having something targeted in order to reach our goals so that we really use time efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
If perchance we have a very small attendance, would we do less breakouts and more work as a group? Will we be able to maneuver that quickly, or?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we can definitely. Jolie will keep us kind of alert on RSVPs. Do we
Because
have
how do we include Zoom in breakout groups when it's not a full Zoom meeting?
Well, they have. Yeah, I've been on some early childhood task force, and everyone online is their own breakout group, and then
wonderful.
everyone in person is the other. Depending if we're in 2 groups or 3 in person, that's how that tends to work out. So it might be a good idea for us to think about having a facilitator online with the members of the council.
Yeah,
just
that can read the chat as well.
Someone that's potentially not in person.
Yeah, I think for the purposes of planning, I think maybe if Jolie could early next week send out an RSVP request so that we would know ahead going into live bodies versus.
Well, I'm hoping that goes out sooner.
Do we already have a base RSVP for?
Nope.
Like an initial one?
Nope.
Okay.
And it
just for what folks said initially when we set the date.
And it won't distinguish between, the RSVP won't distinguish between in-person and live. Does anyone know?
Most people will respond to me as I get closer. I get a couple of it's usually last minute. Things come up last minute. I feel most people plan to be in person, and only a few will tell me up front. I think maybe 1 or 2 people, I want to say maybe Lena and Missy already gave me a heads up that they plan to be Zoom.
Oh, there's Missy's out. Missy's out with the bread.
Yep, that's a last minute. That one was actually recent.
Well, she doesn't have to be there as long as she can get the bread and the snacks.
Oh. Let me see.
Just kidding, Missy, if you're listening somewhere. All right. Well, we can think about that. I mean, typically, that happens to me too, where you're planning to be there in person and then all of a sudden you're called somewhere last minute and you have to jump online. Yeah.
Brian, I'm not sure why, but I'm having a weird little brain moment this morning. So I didn't get actual RSVPs but if you can give me a moment, I'm gonna go behind the scenes and check the tracking real quick. If you guys just give me a moment,
Sure.
I'll come back with an idea of what we have going on. Okay.
Sounds good.
Alrighty.
So we'll plan to get the reminder out tomorrow with the RSVP and I think we can get the agenda based on the conversation. We'll get the agenda, the reminder, and then the para bylaws I'd like to send just to the executive committee, if that's okay, just because so you have the context of what we've been doing. And then we'll try to get that out tomorrow as well.
And then roundtable thoughts in writing would probably go out with your.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Jennifer. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jen.
I was wondering, because you're talking about the bylaws, I was thinking about, we don't have a RESC Alliance representative, and that would probably be somebody that would be good to add to our membership, because they do have private programs for our students. They do a lot of the professional development around the state. So it's a very different voice and lens than just a CONCASE rep. So is that something that we could recommend in this committee and add it to the bylaws and then bring it to the big committee, or do we have to do it at the full council first, is my question.
Don't think it has to be at the full council first. I think that's like within the purview of the executive committee because you're really generating the bylaw revision process. This is interesting because I think, so the legislation was written, I don't know how long ago, but it's a long time. It's been on the books. And some states have reached out to us about the composition of our membership and the interests of the students. And so I'll just caution, I think there's a number of entities that would be appropriate for the council, but specifically students that's where we started. Pair education, pair educators, and now a similar and just as equally important RESC Alliance. I think there are others, that could be and could contribute. So that's just a kind of a cautionary that is this a list that's going to grow tenfold into, from 37 members to X number of members, or do you see it more as once the paraprofessional and the RESCs, if everyone's in agreement with that, are added? I guess what I'm saying is there a need or a process within this adding members aspect of things? Because remind me, the members that are added would be, there wouldn't be appointment letters necessarily as there are for the legislative positions, because these are ad hoc members, if you will. Or would they have voting rights?
So eventually, would we want to, as part of the legislative committee, propose that these members be added to the legislation, or would that be too out there?
I don't think it would be too out there. No.
Personally,
it's one of those things that once you open up,
Mhm.
then everything's kind of up for grabs.
Okay.
So there is some risk in opening up the legislature in that sense, in that there could be additional revisions in addition, because everyone's looking at it and focus on it, in addition to what the advisory council is recommending. And
Okay.
that's not a bad thing. It's just a reality of
Mhm.
doing that process.
Nachi?
Nachi, yeah.
No, thank you. It's really good points here. This is detailed stuff, and to me, it comes down to the needs of our children and who represents those unmet needs and who can speak to voice, have a voice and share their piece. Brian mentioned there are others that could be, so I'm feeling that this is not a quick decision. I'm feeling this is it should take up some time on the executive where we look at all the different roles and what, who's there. And if there are other parties, other entities that you feel, or, that could be a part of it, I think we should discuss some of that before we go forward. It could be a slippery slope. I think that we really, because we don't want to cut people out, yet with representation that really is there for students with disabilities. So the paras is a natural thing because their voice is needed. It came through legislation that their voice needs to be heard at the IEP, at the PPT meeting, right?
Right.
So whose voice needs to be there, and how do we do that? So personally, I feel that as this group, we need to table it and bring it back and talk within our group, and have some real data about it. Meaning, like, who are they representing, and what would they bring to unmet needs of students with disabilities, just as the para piece, which is so strong and so necessary, and students who are the reason that we're doing this work. So just my thoughts that we really need to look at it a little closely.
And but we are moving forward on the para educators, correct? But then we can, at our next meeting, talk about RESC alliances would be wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's and then like
Thank you.
Nachi said, we can kind of comprehensively look, and I don't know if this is something to bring the full membership group into to take, it sounds like a task of looking at all of the roles and assessing, starting with the RESC Alliance, are there other areas where there is a noted need?
And, oh, sorry, I'll give me a second. Could someone answer a quick question for me? And maybe Jennifer, you're the person. Are RESC Alliances for profit? Would there be conflicts of interest?
So the RESC Alliance have a variety of supports and services that they provide. So as Jen mentioned, some of their programming is related to special education. They run magnet schools.
Oh, okay.
They're extensions of the public school district.
Okay.
They are members of CONCASE in that sense, where there's a RESC representative on the CONCASE executive board. And so, they're a complex organization in that sense. They provide professional development. There wouldn't be a conflict because, for being on an advisory board like this. And really, it's the perspective, I think, that they bring. They're included, obviously, in the Special Education Task Force and several other task force because of not only their perspective, but their ability to provide support and training and increase the capacity of the school districts, depending on the issue. So oftentimes they're part of the, resolution or the outcomes that folks are discussing.
Wonderful.
But to have them at the table is important.
Yes. I've been on other committees where there's other groups and they're for profit and they have to recuse themselves from certain votes because it's a conflict of interest for who they represent. So that was my quick question. I really appreciate that clarification.
Yeah.
And don't forget, they do evaluations too for a lot of the districts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they have a lot of things, and a lot of our recommendations that we've handed down through the years have involved them in some level as far as training. So that's what made me think of them originally. But the point I also just thought of, because we're adding another professional with a para. So what does that do for our parent membership numbers? Do we need to offset that and add another parent member to make sure that we have the right ratio of parents or persons with disabilities?
Great question. It's so 50% of whom are parents or individuals is still the case for us because we have the 4 student slots.
Okay.
And
we have 1 paraprofessional added.
Okay, thank you.
Two persons with disabilities.
They count as the same
part
thing.
of they're part of the 37.
37.
So with the students we have 41 technically, and then the paras would be 42.
Okay.
So we would still have 50%. Not that their vacancies wouldn't impact that, but as far as slots go, we're good.
Okay.
Can I just add? I think Jolie's had her hand up, so I think she has something to say too.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Oh, I guess how do I put my who puts my hand down? Oh, okay.
I think you do.
All right. Well, I don't know how to put my hand
There
down.
should be a lower your hand option.
I'll take. Well,
you could keep it up.
You know what? Let me like me, manos arriba always. So the update on the attendance for July 19th, it looks like, including with members from this chat, we would have about 20 attendees at this time. We have some people who still haven't responded. A couple of tentatives and a couple of declines. So I know Joshua Martin declined, and I think I'm almost positive it was Amy.
It's okay, we could.
Amy Messenger.
Okay.
So we don't have.
Well, that's a pretty
too many
nice turnout. I mean, if we have 20, but we don't know how many of those 20 will be in person necessarily, right? That's just an acceptance as a whole, but.
Correct.
Okay. But we definitely have the space to accommodate even if all 20 show up, and then we'll have the
Mhm.
virtual option and figure out how we're going to support them.
I've only heard from like two or three people that they are planning on doing the online.
Okay.
Oh, well, actually a few more now because Jeff just said he will too.
Okay.
I had to take a look at it, so.
Yeah.
Great, wonderful.
It's hard to believe it's next Wednesday already.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had to
Well,
like
you know
double check that on my calendar. Very good.
Great. Have we covered
Um,
everything on the agenda? Is there anything you'd like to add, Brian? Okay,
No, I don't think
covered
so.
everything. Anybody else have any new business, anything? Okay, wonderful. All right. Would someone please make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make
Thank you,
that.
Nancy. A second?
I'll,
Think that was Jen. I
Yeah,
saw
that's
Jen
Jen.
first, right?
Quickest, Jen was quickest.
But Catherine, you were right there.
All right, all in favor of adjournment? Great, Jolie, we're adjourning at 11:19 a.m.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you,
all.
everybody. Stay
Looking
cool.
forward to seeing you
Thank
all
you for
next
doing all
Wednesday.
this work.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
next week.